Hi, I'm Heather Mason. I study the effects of phonics-based reading interventions on first grade students' reading and accuracy. I'm a graduate student at Morningside College and I teach Title I reading at HSTW Community Schools for kindergarten through second grade. As I was researching, the problem in the United States is that their students are not performing at or above grade level. In 2014, 57% of students did not perform at grade level. And those students who don't get those age appropriate literacy skills by the end of third grade are at a high risk of dropping out of school. And I chose to research this topic because when I was setting forth to do this, I wanted to determine which intervention showed more of an increase in students' fluency and accuracy. And at my school, we had used SIPS and BLAST. And so I wanted to test those two validities and see which one showed a bigger increase in students' reading fluency and accuracy. While researching the effects of phonics-based reading intervention, I came across the effects of what it is like to not be a proficient reader. So academically, if you're performing below grade level, it's hard to read and understand textbooks, especially when you get older in those grades when you are doing so much more reading per class. The social standings are correlated with students' reading ability, and students often become friends with peers with similar reading abilities, and this could end up in social groups that have more issues, such as truancy, drug use, and other risky behaviors. Reading anxiety is a negative emotion that can impair learning, and the emotion lowers the brain's ability to pay attention and understand new knowledge. And so the brain's trying to overcome these emotions, and they can't read because their brain's working so hard on overcoming those emotions. And other students might make fun of them for not being able to read well. So that plays into self-image and self-worth. If they fail over and over again, they feel incapable and unintelligent. And long-term effects, some people struggle with getting and keeping jobs, completing daily functions such as reading mail, reading bills and news, understanding the directions on a medicine bottle, or understanding directions on how to get places, helping their kids with homework, and ultimately their social and economic status. So early interventions are so crucial to combat these negative effects for all of those lifelong effects. So bottom-up approach to reading intervention and reading instruction provides a systematic way for teachers to teach basic to more complex skills and build upon those skills that have already learned. So they learn the alphabet, then they put those sounds into words and those words into sentences. And to understand how those words work, we have to teach them grade level phonics, single syllables for CVC words like cats, and then after they have those short syllable or one single syllable short vowel words down, then we can move on to more complex words like CVCE words like rake, and then digraphs and blends, and ultimately moving into two-syllable words. So explicitly teaching phonics, having time to practice and read connected text with phonics is so important for those students. In fourth grade, some fourth grade students who read at or a first or second grade level will understand less than 1/3 of printed material they read without explicit and systematic interventions. These students fall so far behind by the end of third grade, 73% will never perform at grade level. So it's so important to teach those basic skills, make sure they have them mastered before moving on to more complex skills. So the purpose of this study was to determine the effects of phonics-based reading interventions on first grade students' fluency and accuracy. The tools used in this intervention, or this study, was the SIPS reading intervention and the BLAST reading intervention. And the hypothesis was that the SIPS intervention would show a more significant impact on the students' words read per minute than the BLAST intervention, and that both interventions would show an increase in the words read per minute when given a grade level passage. My variables are my independent variable is the use of the SIPS and BLAST interventions. My dependent variable is the student assessment results, which were the fast bridge CBMR probes. Possible impacts. The research of this study could be used to help teachers make instructional decisions about reading interventions. In my work as a reading teacher, would it be impacted on whether or not I would continue to use the SIPS intervention or the BLAST intervention, and how I select interventions in the future. The methods, my participants, there was 14 participants, 7 boys and 7 girls. They were all first grade Title I reading students with varying SES and social and racial backgrounds that are predominantly white and Caucasian. And the demographics are similar to that of the whole school and of the communities that make up the school. I followed an AB research design. So I gave the baseline CBMR, and then I gave the SIPS intervention for the first 6 weeks, following the lesson plans given in the SIPS teaching manual. Rereading the lessons followed a pattern: rereading a story, phonemic awareness, the new phonics piece, decodable words, reading decodable words with new phonics in them, phonics pattern, learning new sight words and reviewing old sight words, reading the new story, and then writing, having guided writing using those new phonics patterns. After the SIPS intervention was given for 6 weeks, the CBMRs were given again to see the increase in words per minute. After that, the BLAST intervention was given for the following 6 weeks using the following BLAST interventions. They reviewed phonics and sight words. They went over a phonemic awareness piece. New phonics components were taught. The students did a word sort, and then decodable words, phrases, and sentences were read, and then they were given guided spelling. And then again, the CBMRs were given again to see the increase in words per minute. And the materials used were the SIPS intervention curriculum, the student practice books, and the teacher's manual. And for BLAST was the teacher's manual, the student workbook, and the student magnetic board kits. So as a result, my hypotheses were supported. The SIPS intervention did show more of an increase in the words read per minute and accuracy. So the SIPS intervention showed a mean score of 24.71 words correct per minute to a mean of 31.7 words correct per minute, whereas the BLAST intervention showed that students went from a mean score of 31.7 to a mean score of 37.14 words correct per minute. So here's my graph for just fluency. So the average number of words correct per minute increased during the 6-week intervention. During SIPS, it was 7 words, and during the BLAST intervention, it was 5 words. For the results for accuracy, the SIPS intervention also showed more of an increase, more of a significant increase on the accuracy percentage on grade level passages. The SIPS intervention, the students improved their accuracy by a mean of 8 80.28 to a mean of 81.78. In the blast intervention, the students improved their accuracy from a mean of 81.78 to a mean of 82.78 words correct per minute. And here's my graph for accuracy. As you can see, the SIPS intervention increased about 1.5% in accuracy for the SIPS intervention, and the blast intervention was about 1.1% increase in the students' accuracy scores during the blast intervention. So the implications of this study, the participants, they were provided with small teacher to student ratio. The skills were taught at the students' level, and using that bottom-up approach, making sure they've mastered those skills before going on to new skills. The skills were taught at the pace needed for each group, so not moving on until they were mastered. RTI, or response to intervention, is conducted to ensure every student is successful, so getting those participants caught up in reading before all those negative effects play into effect. And for educators, the current best practices as an implication, really making sure that interventions and are ensured to make sure students are successful, and giving interventions that are research-based that show the best results. Limitations and recommendations. The short amount of time, there's only 15 minutes per session for each day for 5 days. And so the rate of growth might not be consistent throughout the school year. And so the later months, it might have leveled off or plateaued, or there might have been a surge of growth during the SIPS intervention compared to the blast intervention. The order of interventions, I chose to do SIPS first and then blast. If I were to do the study again, I would do the blast and then the SIPS to see if I got similar results, or if it was just what they've learned in SIPS affected what they learned in blast. It was only a small sample size. There was only 14 students in my sample, 7 boys and 7 girls. So if I did it again, I would make sure I had more students. And reading is a very complex problem. There's no one component of reading can fix the overall reading gap. So sessions of skills build upon one another, but the students could still be lacking in a foundation skill that was not targeted during these interventions. And it's not possible to isolate just one aspect of reading without influencing all the other strands that go into reading. There's also a lot of external influences that go into reading. Parent involvement, opportunities to practice outside of school, the desire and motivation to read, the ability to additional reading materials at home, oral language skills, thinking and reasoning skills of the students and the parents, and the recommendations for future research: longer length of study instead of just 6 weeks, maybe do a whole semester or the length of the school year. Also, a longitudinal study that follows students throughout multiple years and multiple grade levels would be a great idea to have. A larger group, a larger sample size, the order of interventions given, switch, and additional studies are needed to provide whether these hypotheses and results are true. And here are my references for my presentation.